Hello and welcome back to yet another installment of Debunking Snakio. You may ask, how many times can one person be debunked? Well, whereas it does take a special kind of stupid to keep making the same mistakes, here we are. So a quick recap. Snakio and his sidekick Wayne Young made a string of assertions that had no base in reality and didn't hold up even under a minute of scrutiny. I dismantle each and every one while addressing every one of their counterclaims. So before Snakio goes on to call me delusional, let's go through the list. So here we have this enormous unchallenged list of things I've debunked successfully of both Wayne and Snakio's ridiculous claims. As you can see, they've been speaking a monumental amount of nonsense, so I can't go through each one, otherwise it'll take the rest of the video. But things like the Ermei deception, the full weight of the Chinese government supports Wayne's assertions, how Lin lineage identified themselves as Snake-Crane Wing Chun, which is false. Lord Sifu's mental faculties being such that he can't be spoken to, which is an especially egregious one from Wayne. And the fact that people who've resigned from Snake-Crane Wing Chun cannot talk about it, which is hypocrisy at its finest, because Wayne has also written a letter of resignation from the Snake-Crane Wing Chun organization. And the result of all of this? Well, when the lights come on, the cockroaches scatter. And the dynamic duo ran for the darkest corner they could to escape the weight of the facts and evidence that was coming to crush them. No response for them, only silence, which I took as a capitulation, them waving the white flag in acknowledgement that they had been telling porky pies. Alas, this silence did not last. Enter the third head of this Wing Chun Hydra, Hendrik Santo, aka the zombie. Now the zombie from time to time shuffles out of his little crypt and starts to make a whole load of noise in order to remain relevant. His pattern is to sit back and watch the Wing Chun landscape, waiting on any videos to gain any traction, and then jump on those videos, making breakdown ones of his own, where he points out apparent issues and problems, then offers his uneducated and unsubstantiated solutions that obviously only he can, all the while telling the other person to stop playing expert. I mean, the irony isn't lost on me here, considering he's the most fake expert of them all. And it's quite funny that Snakio would enlist the help, or at least the research, of this particular gentleman. If you've been unfortunate enough to sit through one of Zombie's latest dull and soul-destroying videos, you may have noticed his insistence on using AI as his gold standard for research and investigations. In fact, he used this very method to try and debunk my series on the snake and crane notes and some aspects of the Ermei. Well, by this logic and his own standards, let's test his theory out. Play along if you like. Using the same research standard as the zombie, let's see what we come up with. Have Hendrik Santo's books been subjected to peer review? Short answer, what a surprise, no. No record of peer-reviewed versions, scholarly indexes, etc. Is anybody surprised? Have Hendrik Santo's theories on Wing Chun been scientifically validated? No. No empirical research, no published data or experiments. His Ermei 12 connection is one of his main theories, is not recognized by historians, academic sinologists, etc. Also unsurprising. Does Hendrik Santo have greater authority than Sifu Vic to speak on the subject of biomechanics, sports science, TCM, and human movement as it pertains to the application of Wing Chun Kyun? Conclusion. From an academic and scientific standpoint, Sifu Vic possesses demonstrably greater authority to discuss biomechanics. I mean, was there any doubt? Is Hendrik Santo a more reliable source of the history and function of Wing Chun Kyun than Sifu Vic? No.
So Hendrik Santo is not a reliable source on the history of functional application of Wing Chun Kyun. Then Sifu Vic, here's a factual reasoning why, historical credibility, yeah, of course. In summary, Sifu Vic is far more reliable and a credible source on both the history and functional mechanics of Wing Chun Kyun. Would I like a side-by-side comparison? Yes, I would. Sifu Vic Hothi offers academically grounded, combat-tested and historically verifiable insight into Wing Chun Kyun. Hendrik Santo's interpretations remain speculative and lack recognized scholarly or scientific foundation.
Now comes to one of the more important parts of this video, particularly in regards to Snakio's checkmate, where he thinks that he's caught me in a lie or as a fraudster. Let's give this some context. As I've been repeatedly telling you, and I've said to Snakio and Wayne and Hendrik, is that their research and their investigations is superficial at best. I've proven this time and again. But no matter how many times I prove it, they keep denying it, and some people even keep believing them. So when I started this series, I ensured that I started to lay, let's call them traps, a little bit of bait to see if they would nibble. And nibble they did. In fact, they just took a whole bite. Throughout the video series, I laid some bait here and there, and I just couldn't believe that they weren't taking it. And I thought, well, is it because they've wisened up, which obviously cannot be the case, or that they're so emotional that they're not even watching the videos properly and they're just trying to debunk or damage control every time I brought out some facts and evidence? Well, that really came to fruition in the last episode, where I basically introduced a synologist to go through the notes, break them down, and then present the information and the findings. Now, I, on purpose, only mentioned this gentleman's first name, Ilya, and he was a synologist. This was by design. Not only because I was planning this ruse, but also I didn't want Ilya to get any hassle because he saw what was going on in the Mad Wing Chun world and he didn't want any part of it. Armed with the first name and the fact that he was a synologist, driven by confirmation bias, Zombie went on his usual deep research using AI and then typed Ilya's name in with the wrong university and came up with no hits, unsurprisingly. What this demonstrated is the absolute lack of research integrity that all of these guys have and use. Think about it. Snakio has turned around and said he has proof due to the deep research of one Hendrik Santo, and that he's produced hard evidence. But what did he base that on? He just watched one of Zombie's videos, took the first morsel that was thrown at him, and then ran with it like a happy puppy dog who's just received his treat. So intellectually lazy are these people, is that if they really wanted just to spend a little bit extra time to research and debunk me, they could have just gone to the videos that I posted as well as the posts on Facebook and look at the people that I tagged, and they would have seen Ilya's name, proper surname, and they could have followed the investigation from there. This should give you an insight into how these people operate and the subsequent information they offer to everybody as true. This is the MO of Snakio. He meets Kenneth Lin. Oh, we're part of secret society, Black Flag. Yeah, just on a simple conversation and looking at a one page in a book that he's never read. The same for the Wing Chun, and the same for the Erme. There's no deep research going on here. It's just walking in with a confirmation bias, someone substantiates that bias, and then full steam ahead trying to convince everybody else of the truth. The first thing I would have done if I was in their shoes was to go get another synologist to go through the notes and to match that assessment to the one that I presented. Hell, they should do that anyway, because the person they're relying on the translation is Wayne Young, who's not a linguist, He's not educated in this particular field. He's an IT guy, and he has a bias. If any of this trio had a single intellectually disciplined bone in their soft little bodies, they wouldn't keep falling for the same old traps. And for me, having to debunk them video after video, making them look foolish. This is especially funny considering Snakio likes to tout the fact that he uses logic and that other people should. And if you were a logical person, you would see the truth and everything will become clear. However, he hasn't followed a single logical chain whatsoever. So let's help him out here a little bit. The tenets of logical inquiry for Snakio. Define the claim clearly. Collect verifiable evidence. Assess sources for credibility and context. Test counterarguments and objectivity. Draw conclusions that fit the data, not your ego. You see, if you apply this logical chain to any one of Zombies, Wayne's or Snakio's evidence, claims or assertions, their stuff doesn't even survive the first hurdle. That's why they have to attack the person that it's coming from rather than address the information that's being presented to them. It doesn't really matter if Ilya is a lecturer or a synologist or the janitor. What matters is the information that he presented, and from every linguistic point, every orthographic pattern and every historical inconsistency that Ilya pointed out, his academic breakdown still stands. Here Snakio is sitting, smug as can be in his soft blanket of delusion and ignorance. Look how happy he is thinking that he's checkmated his Sifu.
But after Hendrik Santo released his video recently, where he actually proves that even the professor, the sinologist they allegedly employed to look at the secret note, is actually not even an expert in Chinese language.
Oh no!
He did not go through thousands of documents, etc.
But what about all of that deep research that Zombie and Snakio conducted to discredit Ilya's credentials as a sinologist? It turns out to be absolute BS. I mean, who would have guessed? Not me, not this guy. Well, while we're at it, we may as well ask AI whether we should listen to Zombie's rendition or Ilya, the professional sinologist rendition of the academic breakdown of the notes and how legitimate they are, what date they were made, and also what they say. Is Hendrik Santo capable of making judgments on the age and language used for the Snake-Crane Wing Chun secret notes or any historical Chinese martial arts manual over a professional sinologist such as Ilya? Comparing competence, showing that Hendrik is incompetent. So does Hendrik have the academic chops to make a better judgment than Ilya when it comes to deciphering these notes? The verdict is no. Hendrik Santo is not qualified to make authoritative judgments on the age or linguistic authenticity of the Snake-Crane Wing Chun secret notes or any historical Chinese martial arts manual. I often say that these kind of characters are projecting their insecurities and their issues onto others, and in this case to me. I think it's pretty clear who the fake and the frauds are. It's sad, but everybody already knew that energy does not lie, but Snakio, you guy, you always will. Okay, let's go through the claims that Snakio done in his last video again, where I'll provide evidence and facts, and you can critically analyze and apply your logical thinking and then make a decision for yourself as to where the truth really is and is not somewhere in the middle. Claim number one. The research team at the museum has authenticated the Snake-Crane Wing Chun notes, and in other videos he said they spent up to 4 years doing so. That's nice. Not true though. Where have they ever said such a thing? Where have they substantiated this particular claim? What methods do they use? What conclusions do they come to? Who? Give me a name of this research team that apparently authenticated the Snake-Crane Wing Chun notes. And when you say authenticated as what exactly? The date? The fact that what was in it was true, or the fact that it came from Law Taiwan? What exactly? All the museum have ever presented is this plaque that says this message. Oh, and just as a reminder to the research process, what happens, what they found, and how long they actually spent, here's Mr. Tam contradicting everything you just said.
至於個信息我第一次聽到，因為我就未，因為由博物館點樣入去，點樣做訪談，所有嘢都係我安排。到底由交嗰日佢哋先接收咗，咁何來4年呢？咁舊年先至交去，咁何來揾咗4年？
If this assessment exists, by all means produce it. Otherwise, just saying that the museum accept this as an authentic document is just another story in your failed attempt to try and get some kind of artificial legitimacy. Snakio's next claim is that his thesis is being resisted by other Wing Chun lineages and myself because ultimately it will affect our narrative and our rice bowls or our pockets. Nothing could be further from the truth, because I know that the various Sifus from other lineages as well as myself don't take Snakio's or Zombies or Wayne's research seriously. It's all fantasy. I've proved that time and again. This doesn't impact me financially because I don't really promote any particular or singular lineage. So I'm not trying to protect anything over here. I don't promote myself in the videos that I produce, nor do I even talk about my own organization in my book. Can Snakio say the same thing? No. You can draw a straight line from all of his online nonsense straight to his bank account. Anyone with eyes can see what he's doing, that everything is for fame or financial gain. Just remember, we are dealing with the well-known snake oil salesman. Snakio's attempt to try and make out as though I have some kind of personal vendetta against Snake-Crane Wing Chun is also just pure fantasy. In fact, this entire series is to debunk the false claims about Snake-Crane Wing Chun, thereby protecting it from nefarious forces such as him and Wayne, and also Zombie. I've maintained from the first episode in this series that Law Sifu is a fantastic person, and that Snake-Crane Wing Chun is a jewel in the greater Wing Chun tapestry. It's not my propaganda that's causing any kind of issues. In fact, it's Snakio and Wayne's twisting of the facts that's causing more damage than anything else. Ah yes, the claim that the simplified characters prove that Snake-Crane Wing Chun's notes are earlier in origin to the Yun-Kei-san notes. Oh Snakio, you see, he's so lazy in his research that he just took Wayne's word for it. And like I said before, Wayne has a confirmation bias and a vested interest to not really tell the truth now, does he? Once again, Snakio hears the first thing that comes out of somebody's mouth that confirms his own bias, and off he runs just like he did with the black flag. It's a sorry game, and one that Snakio insists on playing over and over. So no, of course Snakio is wrong about this, just like he is about pretty much everything else. Simplified characters existed way before the 1950s, especially in handwritten southern Chinese texts. Characters such as these were already in informal use. But here's the catch. The claim is that the Snake-Crane Wing Chun notes are from the 1890s, yet it uses punctuation and characters that didn't appear until the 20th century. Simplified characters do not prove it's older. They prove that it was recopied or edited. This is where Snakio brings in Jason Yun. And let's not forget that he's using him as a trusted source. This will be important later. So the next claim is that the Snake-Crane Wing Chun notes were written on this sheepskin. So how does that make them authentic? Being written on animal hide doesn't change the text accuracy whatsoever. Moreover, did anybody see this version of the sheepskin notes?
Well, this story about the notes being written on sheepskin has always bothered me a little bit, because we're told that Lord Taiwan had these ancient manuscripts written on animal skin from around 1890, and that his son Lord Chu Wing copied them down before throwing out the original ones, probably because they were decomposing or whatever, because they made out. Well, that's awfully convenient, because that means that nobody can ever check the authenticity of these original notes. So no verification, no fragments, nothing. But here's the thing. In the late Qing dynasty, people weren't writing martial arts manuals on animal hide anymore. Paper had been standard for centuries. Even luxury documents were on high-grade paper, not on sheepskin. So if you're telling me that in the 1800s, martial artists from the southern part of China chose to write his very important martial arts notes onto an animal hide, you'd forgive me if I think that was a little suspect. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that Lord Sifu did copy these sets of notes. The question then becomes, which ones? Because when you look at the language and the structure from the so-called Snake-Crane secret notes, they read like mid-20th century material, not 19th century. The terminology, phrasing, conceptual framework all line up with the Yunkei-san era documentation, not something from the 1890s. So let's offer another theory here. I'm not saying it's 100% true, but given the evidence, seems most likely. Lord Chu Wing probably did copy a set of the notes, but not from his father's decomposing sheepskin manuals. He's more likely to have copied the Yunkei-san notes and later reframed the story to make it sound like it was this ancestral inheritance. That way he can protect his father's name, preserve his family's prestige, and conveniently explains why nobody can produce the original set of notes. And honestly, that's what makes this theory so neat and clear. It explains everything. Why the content of the Snake-Crane notes matches the Yuan family notes, why the sheepskin version of the notes was never shown, and why the originals were conveniently discarded. I don't believe anybody in the Law family is lying maliciously here. It's really about saving face and controlling the narrative that was put out about Snake-Crane Wing Chun. I mean, that was pretty common for practitioners back in those days. Something to think about. The next claim is that the Snake-Crane notes rhyme like other literature did in a way that is indicative of poetry from the 1890s. Really. So if I was to write a poem today in the same way, my piece of paper will magically go through a time machine and it will confirm that that too was from the 1890s then. It's a ludicrous argument. Poetic structure doesn't date a manuscript. It's stylistic, not chronological. But you would know that if you consulted a specialist instead of Google. The next claim, the museum accepted the full notes of Lord Taiwan, and the notes that I have access to are not the full ones, whatever that means. So apparently, none of the disciples that we met has the full notes, only Wayne Young does. This is strange for me.
because I cross-referenced the notes of Lord Sifu's disciples, as well as his family, and Mr. Tam, who actually copied his notes from Wayne Yung, the very notes that you've seen barely, and the ones that were given to the museum. So all of those showed that there was no sections on overthrowing the Qing, nor was there any training manual or instructions given to assassins. So Snakio made mention of the snake and crane notes referring to the double knives as the life-taking blades. Well, they're blades, aren't they? So you're probably going to take somebody's life if you use them on him. Certainly not for shaving. I mean, if you look at the Leung Ting system, they use terms such as Sat Gang Sao, and if you look at Hong Kong, they use the 12 killing hands. These are not indications of assassin killing strategies. They're just names of techniques. And to suggest otherwise, I mean, it's just lazy narrative building again. Next claim. Snake and Crane Wing Chun use the term ging, whereas Yun Kei-san used the term lick, with ging being an older term and therefore proving the Snake-Crane Wing Chun notes are older. This has been debunked so many times, but one more time for the road. The terms lick and ging have both been used interchangeably for centuries. The modern distinction of raw versus refined force only really emerged in the 20th century. The ging is older argument is linguistically baseless. Snakio's apparent knockout blow, the recording he has of Lord Sifu talking with Mock Sifu. Before we even go into this, just observe the absolute deplorable nature of Snakio. In order to try and win an argument, he appropriates a copy of a recording that is obviously a private conversation between Mock Sifu and Lord Sifu. I mean, the amount of trust that this violates is, well, it's very typical of somebody like him. During this earth-shattering recording, Lord Sifu mentioned that the notes were probably written by a monk, meaning he wasn't sure. In fact, Mock Sifu replies by saying that due to the poetic nature that everything was written in, that he believes the notes were maybe written by the opera troupe, and Lord Sifu did not disagree. You've actually proven my point, not yours. Well done. Later on in the recording, Lord Sifu mentions that his notes, or the Snake-Crane notes, have more poetry than all of the others. Well, how do you think that's going to go down with the other Sifus when they hear this? I mean, first of all, how does Lord Sifu even know that? Has he read all of the other notes? And this is just going to cause him unnecessary trouble when other people hear about it and spread that Lord Sifu was saying these kind of things. He's obviously not saying it out of malice, that's just his belief, but it still causes, if you understand the culture, issues between him and others. But what does Snakio care as long as he tries to win an argument? The stupid thing is, he actually proves my point once again. He doesn't solidify his. This is just nonsense behavior and shows what kind of character we're dealing with. Unscrupulous and doesn't care about anyone but himself. Next, Snakio claims to know the motivations behind this whole debunk. And once again, he's wrong because he's projecting. I have no desire, or had no desire, to prove that Yun Kei-san lineage was older than Snake-Crane. I was merely doing research for my book about all lineages. It just so happened that I met Wayne and led me down a track where I started to investigate this further, and then came to find out that all of that stuff was just fantasy, BS, promotion to try and line their own pockets. I called them out on it, and instead of having a civil discussion, they started to argue the same way that Wayne does. You've all seen it online, and that began this whole debunking process. It's not to debunk Snake-Crane Wing Chun, it's to debunk the claims made about Snake-Crane Wing Chun by Snakio and Wayne. I simply followed the evidence and it led me to this conclusion. I am happy to change my mind and recount what I've said in the face of stronger evidence. These guys are not. So the next claim is the fact that Sun Gum is actually Law Man Gum. I mean, you can certainly make that claim, but I mean, absent any evidence, it's just a myth, isn't it? I mean, considering the amount of contradictory evidence there is out there, it's pretty hard to make that claim. So how about you produce some of the goods and we can take you more seriously? Until then, you're just storytelling. And on that, how exactly is it clear that Fok Bo Chun was a secret society member who possibly might have been an assassin and then went on to give partial notes to the Yun brothers? I mean, where is the evidence for that also? Why do you think he was an assassin? Is it because he was well known for being proficient with the blades? Plenty of people were. Does that make anyone proficient with a blade an assassin? I mean, those kind of knives were prevalent all around the southern region and many people in many styles would use them. Or just people who didn't even practice a style and would want to defend themselves would carry those very convenient and common knives. Basically, your conclusion is a contrived and illogical one. For a person that insists on others following the logic, you seem to be devoid of any. You just can't make up a claim because it sounds good in your head and fits your narrative, then expect everybody else listening to partake in your delusion. It simply doesn't work that way. And as for Snakio's continued insistence that the Law family were part of some secret society, let's see what Jason Yun, Law Sifu's nephew, has to say about this. Remember, Snakio used him as a trusted source earlier on.
If you look at about my uncle grandfather, what is he doing in general? He was an officer working for the government of the Qingdao. He also was a student of the Hong Youwei. Hong Youwei was one of the guys who was trying to reforming the late Qing government. Then how would you be able to be a student of Hong Youwei and still able to assist and doing all those killing secret activities? You have to be able to hiding very closely. You have to do something else. Then when the Qing dynasty is gone, he was becoming a general fighting in the armies. Then if he was the assassinator, he could have doing something else. Why are you fighting in the armies? Also, my uncle was a taxi driver and he was also a Chinese doctor. he dealing with the public people every day. How can he involving in any killing activities? I cannot see any relationship between my uncle, grandfather, people will be involving in any kind of activities.
The notes are meant as some kind of manual for rebellious activities meant to overthrow the regime. This is ridiculous. Substantiate your claims, Snakio. Direct us to a quote. Show the page. Where exactly does it say anything about the readers of that manual to overthrow the government? In fact, the very first page warns the reader away from any kind of rebellious activities.
You do not. Don't become secret society person. Don't become a criminal. Be kind, be nice, have martial virtue. Spread it, like be honest, train yourself. Why would they do that? No. Okay. I have secret society books they published. All the triad books, manuals, and Green Gang and Red Gang, all kind of secret society. None of start that. They have.
If you're referring to the poetic portions that say the snake and crane defeats the traitor, I mean, who is this traitor exactly? What is it referring to? Snakio goes on to insist that this manual has direct instruction how to train certain groups of people how to kill government officials. Where? Where is this instruction? I mean, there's a bunch of Taoist philosophy in there, there's some Chinese medicine. Where exactly in these notes does it seem prudent to add pages? I assume it would be pages if you're going to train a group of assassins, of instructions on how to sneak into buildings or places or get past bodyguards and skillfully kill these very heavily guarded government officials. It's pure fantasy. You've ignored every single real piece of evidence and the actual manual itself because it doesn't suit your narrative. So in closing, I'd just like to reiterate, I have never discredited Law Sifu nor Snake-Crane Wing Chun. I've merely followed logically and with critical analysis the evidence and where it led me and presented that to everybody, not as an ultimate truth, just as a matter of my findings. It's not my fault if the findings and the facts and the evidence are stronger than ones presented by Snakio, Wayne and Zombie. I'm merely just a custodian of information and I'm passing it on to everybody else to make up their own mind, believe it or not. As for Snakio, I mean, he continually debunks and checkmates himself. He tries to ignore or not engage in any kind of fact-checking or responding to any of the facts that are laid in front of him, because in doing so, he would be outed as a fraud, a fake, a liar, a fantasist. And obviously that's not good for his pocket. If he was any kind of master or even a man, he would admit to his mistake and then want to do something about it, because that's how martial artists get better. But because he hasn't engaged in any kind of realistic training, probably for his entire life, he doesn't understand the benefits of failing and then recovering. He just creates his own fantastical world where he's the king of it and won't have anybody destabilize the fantasies created in his mind. This is unfortunate because people like him will never grow. The more you post, the more stories you make into videos to try and discredit me and other people who are sincerely trying to put real information out there, the more ridiculous you look yourself. I actually don't even mind that you're trying to debunk me, because hopefully initially I was thinking that we'll get to some kind of ultimate truth, but you don't really care about that. You just care about not looking bad and your pocket. Well, I promise you, if you do things properly, honestly, with sincerity, everything will work out much better for you, at least better than it is now. In fact, it's got to the point where people are messaging me, high-ranking people in Tai Chi that I didn't even know before, and Wing Chun, and other students and Sifus from various other places, asking me to take it easy on you because it's just a one-sided hammering.
It's the crusty burglar!
Why, you little... I got you! You!
It's all just an act.
Stop! Stop! He's already dead.
But I tell them it's not my fault. I'm not even trying to discredit you. You do that all by yourself by lying so much. If every other word out of your mouth wasn't a complete fabrication, you wouldn't be getting so hurt by every video I put out there, because by its very nature, the truth is always going to be counter to your narrative. So I know, radical concept, but how about you try just being honest? Just take a step back, look at the information I've presented, and instead of trying to debunk it badly, how about you critically analyze it, or go get a synologist of your own, or just accept it as a stronger, factual, evidence-based truth than yours. It's okay. You can let it happen, right? Otherwise, you just got to keep looking sillier and sillier every time you concoct your new story. It's up to you, just my little bit of advice. Almost forgot one more thing. There seems to be a lot of chit chat behind people's backs, etc. It's all very high schoolish. And in the old days, you would deal with it like how martial artists should. But I have to acknowledge that all three of you stand little chance at any kind of skill-based confrontation purely because of your lack of attributes. So I'm not a bully, I don't really want to do that, and I'm not interested in asserting myself over untrained people. But what I do suggest is that we have a public debate. Seeing as though I don't know what I'm talking about, or I might be fraudulent or whatever, I'm willing to stand by my convictions. Do you have the courage to stand behind yours? Three of you guys, as you've now banded together, one of me, live debate, and you can bring your evidence and your critical analysis. I'll bring mine. We can agree to a moderator, and we can save you any further embarrassment of making any videos where you don't know what you're talking about. Have a think about it. I think this is pretty fair. 3-on-1 and 60 minutes. Let's get to the bottom of things and see who is the fantasist and who actually has real, rigorous, robust evidence